this draft is going to be interesting. So we have just over a week to go before the draft, and we could be seeing a lot more movement up and down the board.
What do you got for me?
Panthers at number 8 have reportedly had conversations with other teams about trading down. And the Giants at 11 are internally considering whether they should move out of their spot and drop down as well. So Panthers at 8, Giants at 11, and the Dolphins are also taking calls for the 6th pick. Obviously, we know that the Falcons are at least in the conversation about possibly moving. Dave Gettleman has never traded down in the first in 8 drafts.
No, he does. That's not
Gettleman.
Yeah, the Giants, and here's the other thing. The Giants solved a lot of their issues. The Giants, I don't think, and I'm a big believer in moving down in the draft, but what the Giants need is a guy that could play anywhere on the interior of the O-line or right tackle, and that's Elijah Vera-Tucker, and 11 is the perfect spot for him. The Panthers, I'll throw this at you, Joy. I think the Panthers may wait till draft day. So let's say you're the Panthers, and just because the way the draft works, neither of the tackles, Penei Sewell or Slater, gets drafted. And you sit to yourself and think, we can move down 3 spots and get them. I think Carolina, I would move down. You know how this draft is going to be. Yeah. If Atlanta takes Trey Lance and then Denver moves up, 5 of the first 7 picks could be quarterbacks. So then, you know, Jamar Chase is going to go next or Kyle Pitts. So I can see Carolina on draft day just saying, we're going to watch how this thing unfolds. And if Atlanta goes quarterback or Kyle Pitts, that means you're through the first 4 picks and you have both great O-linemen. Well, and then I could see him moving down. Assuming
Mac Jones goes to the 49ers, which we're hearing more and more of, if you look at just the top 10, it's really going to depend, I think, on draft day whether these teams move around or not. Like the pre-draft moves, I feel like might be done. And to your points, the draft really starts with Atlanta. Like if it's Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Atlanta is where the draft actually starts, because if they go quarterback or Kyle Pitts or trade out of that spot, that has a ripple effect for the rest of the first round. So that's probably why the Giants are in that conversation, why the Dolphins are in that conversation, because they want it to be known, like, hey, we're flexible on draft day too. Give us a call and be ready with an offer if you're trying to move up. If, say, Trey Lance or Justin Fields slip, Atlanta doesn't make that move, we know Cincinnati's going to stay firm at that 5th pick and probably take an offensive lineman.
Right.
Although they could
take Kyle Pitts.
Take Kyle Pitts.
If Atlanta now runs the draft. Now, you know, I would take Kyle Pitts or get a boatload of picks. I would not take a quarterback. But listen, when you talk to NFL people, they all say the same thing. Trey Lance's ceiling is insane. Just don't play him.
It's just so high. It's so high to take a quarterback and
not play him for 2 years. I know.
In a city like Atlanta.
I get it.
I think you can do that in Buffalo. I don't think you can do that in Atlanta.
I also think you can do it if Trey Lance is the 23rd pick. It's really hard to. A number 4 pick doesn't play for 2 years. Really hard to sell to a big market.
I don't think you can. So Baker Mayfield, and you're paying Matt Ryan so much money. Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski led the Browns to their first playoff win in 26 years in their first season together. And Stefanski is expecting another big jump from his quarterback in year 2.
I hope it's significantly better. I hope as he starts to listen to the installs with AVP, you're hearing it for not the second time. I mean, he's heard these plays over and over and again. Tried to adjust what we do based on his strengths, our players' strengths. So I would hope he's much more comfortable from that perspective. I think Baker, as we've talked about, is somebody that constantly wants to get better.
I think Baker came into his own last year. I think the Browns finally established a culture, and I think they made a lot of really good moves this offseason on paper, which usually is not a good term to associate with your team, because generally those don't work out. But on paper, they have one of the top rosters in the league.
No question.
Definitely put them up there with the Chiefs. You can put them up there with the Bucks. You can put them up there with the Rams. They have a great roster. And Baker's kind of playing for his contract in his future with Cleveland this year. I think that they should win multiple playoff games this year.
Listen, I contend, I told you, I've made 2 huge bets since we've been working together.
Clemson, Ohio State.
Clemson, Ohio State. Clemson underdog. I took them. And Green Bay, Houston last year. Green Bay came off a humiliating loss. The number was like -4 at Houston, and I threw a ton of money at it. Cleveland, Fox Bet has Cleveland at 9.5 wins. We've moved to 17 games.
Yeah, and they're 11-5 last
So
year.
I'm going to say Cleveland, all Cleveland has to do with the best O-line in the game is go 10-7 with who I think is a highly functional coach. It is the easiest odd. It is the ease. Now, the schedule we talked about this last week. The schedule's got really some potholes. Like if they give you Kansas City in the first 2 weeks and New England later and Green Bay later on the road, then you get real close to the 10 number. But if Kansas City's late in the schedule and New England's early, this is a 12-5 team.
I don't see how you don't improve from last year.
Yeah.
And the Steelers are running it back with Ben Roethlisberger. We don't know what Burrow is going to come back with to work with. We know what he's capable of, but what's Cincinnati going to do and put in place for him? We don't know if his coach is the right coach either. And the Ravens have been like relatively quiet. So I think it's the Browns' division to win. So Jameis Winston is heading towards a quarterback competition with Taysom Hill to be the Saints starter next season. He was at a youth football camp recently, and Jameis Winston's speeches are generally pretty interesting.
To say the least.
Yeah, but I like this speech that he gave to the kids at the camp.
I went from being the #1 draft pick to being everybody laugh at me. But guess what? I'm about that business. I'm out working everybody at my position. I'm doing things every single day. Commit to the dream. Because that's the thing. We have to go back to being little kids about this football game. Because this is a kid's game that men play.
I love camp speeches.
Yeah, listen, the best thing about Jameis is he changed his body, which is harder than anything. That's like committing to not eating this and eating that and working out. Commitment. He totally looks like he's changed his body, so it tells me he's made a commitment.
And he had surgery. He wasn't able to see.
I also find Jameis easier to root for. I mean, it's his mistakes are kind of immaturity. His NFL mistakes have just been kind of a goofy kid. He's not a bad guy. I really think he wants to succeed. I really think he wants to win. I really do. I just think sometimes he couldn't overcome himself.
Right.
He wasn't ready to quite be the guy at 22. Is he at 26? I think there's a real high potential for it.
I didn't love Mariota or Jameis Winston coming into the draft. I didn't think Mariota had NFL starting level skills, and he was okay. And I thought Jameis was way immature and intangible wise. I did not think he was
the
ready.
Opposite of Dak, talent, but 5 years.
We always knew they both have talent, but how is that going to translate to the NFL? Mariota underachieved, and Jameis obviously had immaturity issues. He has high talent potential, but also high mistake potential, as we know, throwing 30 interceptions in his last year with the Bucs. But he did say he was basically going to quarterback university with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, and he was a starter for 5 years with the Bucs. I don't see how he doesn't win this job for the Saints next year. I know Taysom said he's training and he's shifted to becoming a full-time quarterback. But he started 4 games for the Saints, and Jameis Winston was a 5-year starter for the Bucs. Now, was he top level? No, but we saw what the high end of his potential is. If you could cut his interceptions in half, what is the potential that you have there? I think you have to leave room for growth with people.
Yes.
We are very quick as a society to not give second chances, even though we've all received second chances and third chances and so on and so forth. I like what I'm seeing from Jameis. You see that he is actually putting in a significant effort, and maybe just a new environment was what he needed.
Well, also a new environment, but one of the great offensive coaches of our lifetime.
And learning from Drew Brees, who everyone is impacted by when they play with him.
We all know that where you land matters to rookie quarterbacks. It probably matters to guys getting a second chance.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton's a good guy to have. All right, Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And